So, good morning. Good morning. I am so grateful to be in holy community with you. It is a blessed opportunity always. And so, as we are coming to a close of our series of cultivating and understanding our intuition, I'd like to start this morning by sharing a memory of a time that occurred when my now 31-year-old twin boys were about 8 years old. And it was one morning, and I was trying to get them dressed and fed. I mean, they were dressing themselves at that time, but they were just wanting to just lounge around. One of them wanted to be, sleep a little bit longer. The other one wanted to watch TV. Who didn't want to have breakfast? And as the clock was ticking, I started to feel a sense of anxiousness because I wanted to be on time for work. And so as this continued, I became frustrated and I lost my patience with them. And then on my way to work, as I was driving, I was feeling such deep remorse for losing my patience with them. There is nothing like mother's guilt. And not only was I feeling remorseful, but I was also feeling exhausted. Being a single mother was not one of the easiest paths that I've experienced. I was working full time, raising my kids on my own, and I also had begun graduate school. So there I was in the car, filled with exhaustion, filled with the heaviness of regret. And all of a sudden, on the radio, I heard these words, the words we listened to earlier, but this was sung by Phil Collins. You with the sad eyes, don't be discouraged. Oh, I realize it's hard to take courage in a world full of people. You can lose sight of it all when the darkness inside you can make you feel so small. Oh, show me a smile then. Don't be unhappy. I can't remember the last time I saw you laughing. Oh, this world can make you crazy. And you've taken all that you can bear. But just call me up, because I will always be there. And I see your true colors. Well, as the song played, the tears streamed down my face. There was like a waterfall, but it was a waterfall of release. For in that moment, I felt embraced by the universe. I felt that in that moment of darkness, in the form of doubt, of fear, and of worry, when I was doubting whether I made a mistake by following what I thought was an intuitive guidance of empowerment to go back to graduate school. And in that moment, the universe spoke to me. My intuition and that which is beyond us was speaking to me, and I was feeling embraced in that moment. So, my friends, if you at any time in your life had experienced darkness in its many forms, where you can relate to feeling so small, type yes in the chat box. Anybody ever have mother's guilt? I've done a lot of work with that. Yes. Okay. So I knew that I wasn't alone and that this is, part of our, I just see some more yeses. And so as we breathe into this moment, my friends, I've come to understand and embrace, and I'm sure many of you have, that our life's journey is filled with peaks, valleys, and somewhere in between. And I think sometimes there's a false notion, a false belief we may take on that because we pray, because we meditate, because we do yoga, we do tapping, we're engaged in spiritual study, we're on a spiritual journey, that we will somehow, because of that, bypass the valleys or the darkness in our lives, right? And so I've come to know that our spiritual journey is not a linear path, but it is more cyclical. We've talked about endings, right? Death endings, the in-between time where we're emptying the old beliefs so that we can step into an empowered, more enlightened conscious state of our being, into new life, the new life that Rosemary beautifully got at the core of her being, right? And so sometimes along this, when we have those trials and tribulations, it may seem like we kind of do a little spiral backwards and revisit some things, but often it is at a deeper level. And so it is also a truth, remembering that our awareness of being in the state of the flow of our intuitive guidance is directly proportional to where we are in consciousness. So in times of darkness, when there are times of trials and tribulations, challenges, dis-ease, losing a job, struggling as a single mother, so on and so on, we can lose sight of it all, right? And just like we don't, on a cloudy day when things are storming, we don't see the sun, but it still exists. Our intuition, the voice of the wise one, our connection to that which is greater, be it God, call it the angels, all of the above, is always present. But it is us that needs to call ourselves up, as the lyrics say. This world can make you crazy. And when you've taken all it you can bear, just call me up, because I will always be there. So who and what are we calling up? And who and what will always be there? Well, sometimes when we're going through physical challenges, we start at the physical world, right? Yes, prayer is powerful meditation and it helps me shift. And there are times, well, perhaps maybe when you're lying in a hospital bed and you can't breathe and your lungs are filled with fluid, the fear might be so strong that maybe you're calling up someone, maybe your chaplain, maybe your minister is holding the high watch, or another beloved friend is holding the high watch. And in that space where you can hold the truth for another, it helps the opening of that remembrance within that person. So there we start of who we're calling up on the physical level. But on the spiritual level, who we are calling up is our higher selves. We are calling for an elevation of consciousness to move from that place of victim into the state of the realm of the absolute or superconscious mind, which can take movement, meditation, prayer, journaling, all those things that we spoke of. And sometimes we can be a little reluctant to do when we are in a state of pain, when the pain body is so strong. And so we take that deep breath, and sometimes it's just the cry to the universe, I need to hear you. And it comes out in a song. It comes out in a way that can pierce that darkness. In the words of Kim Chesney, author of Radical Intuition, she shares with us, in times of trial, our intuition is most important. When life is hard, When the world seems cold, the ease and warmth of our supreme state calls us to go within. You get the universal call. It calls us to the light of truth. Return home. Remember who you are. Remember. From time to time, when we are in a funk or out of sorts, no matter how intuitive we naturally are, we find ourselves in a place where we just can't connect with our intuition. We don't know what it is saying to us. We are confused or reluctant to act on it. We are in what is called the dreaded state of intuitive dissonance. It is there, but we are not feeling, hearing, connecting to it. And so what I would like to share are 5 signs. There are some more, but for today's purpose, I will be sharing 5 signs of when we are in that intuitive dissonance and what we can do. Some of them you already are aware of, but it's important to be reminded of that. And so the first one is blocked energy. What Michael Singer, the author of The Untethered Soul, calls samskaras. And that occurs, we are energetic beings, and the flow of spirit, the flow of Shakti, the universal life force, whatever you call it, is always active, right? But we create these energetic blocks within our physical beingness to be the receptor of that when we resist the act of resistance, where we resist life, people, situations, where we resist our feelings, our thoughts, and we shove them down. We'd rather not deal with that. We rather not experience that. I'm not going to let that get me this time. And sometimes resistance can come in the form of even being what we can call a spiritual Pollyanna, right? Meaning, yes, it's important to affirm the truth about us, but we cannot bypass our human experience. We cannot bypass coughing up the hairball, so to speak, where we look at what our human experience is, speak into it, feel it, allow it to be. And then, that is our denial. And, in unity, when we pray, there's the denial and the affirmation, not denial of pretending that there are not facts happening in our lives, but knowing that our soul, our spirit, something greater than ourselves will, in consciousness, be the grace that sustains us, that will lift us, that will lead us to our next step. And we will be embraced in the place of love. And so what are some of those remedies when we are experiencing blocked energy, where we can't hear things, sense things, or when we just know we're resisting something or someone? So it is the call to be present to what is, as with all the uncomfortability. Last week, Deborah shared with us, her celebration of 35 years with AA, and one of her fears that she had, which led her to reaching for a drink, was as facing her feelings, just being present to them. And she beautifully shared how she began to allow all of them to come forth, looking at her beliefs and then saying, are these really true? Are these in alignment with the spiritual principles that I profess? And forgiveness. Forgiveness means letting go of what is not in alignment with truth, which means for ourselves, letting go of the stories that we tell ourselves that is not the truth. Yes, I had a moment or moments of being impatient with my children, but it didn't mean that I didn't choose again. It didn't mean that I didn't make amends. And in that moment was modeling for my sons what it means to walk the human journey, and that we can choose again, and what it looks like to have an honest, heartfelt apology and a communication, right? And then there is that forgiveness of others. There's so many processes, but what it is saying, I may not like what you do, and I am not honoring what you do, but I am no longer going to allow the story, the incidents, the occurrence of what happened to stop me from living my most empowered self. And then there is movement. And this combination is powerful together. So what is the second sign of intuitive dissonance? The experience of doubt and lack of self-confidence. And that is a sign that we have lost our trust in ourselves. We've lost trust in, are we hearing the voice of intuition, or is it the voice of the critical one? And so some of the things that we can do to help us bring us back into coherence is journaling. You know, if you don't like journaling, keep it on a recorder, your phone, your computer. Every time you have an intuitive hit and you take action on it, or you make an empowered choice, you know, journal about it or speak into it, record it some way, so that when you are in those challenging times, you can go back to and remember. Also, it is important to be able to distinguish our intellect from our intuition. Usually the intellectual mind will speak in ways where it's repetitive, incessant, demanding, critical. It can be loud, whereas the voice of intuition is calm, it's inspiring, and it's empowering. It doesn't mean that when we hear the intuition that we don't feel fear, because it may ask us to step out of our comfort zone. But there is that sense of inspiration and empowerment that shines forth in that. And then self-esteem issues are a third chakra issue. And, you know, journaling on that. So I'm going to ask Matt, because of time for this service, to put in the chat box something that comes from the work of Carolyn Mace about third chakra work. Yes, you can do yoga to clear that. Yes, you can go to have Reiki done, have long distance in-person Reiki, but it is also important to do the inner work, because there is that saying, right, that we can't put new wine in old wineskins, meaning that, yes, we can have that energetic release, but if we are still operating from those stories and we haven't looked at them about us not being enough and so on, then we will just recreate, you know, that energy block and get in our own way. And so she has, you know, basically what we experience when there is a block in third chakra, what organs, and then she gives you 5 reflection questions. So I invite you to take a look at them in your own time. And so then we move into another sign of intuitive dissonance is confusion, and the dreaded overthinking, analysis. You know, where we make that lists of pros and cons and we go over it and over it and over it. And the more you go over it, you get more confused and more overwhelmed. And so we take that deep breath, and you can do meditation in the form that's right for you, whether it's moving, whether it's putting your hands in the ground, mantras, just being in stillness. Again, we talk about the creation of white space. And this is really important, is to step away from it, right? Step away from it. You know, there is the saying that in 3 days I rose again. And in that in between time, it's symbolic. It doesn't mean literally 3 days. But it is that time for that emptying. It is that time for us to have distance, whether it's 3 days, 2 days, 1 day, a couple hours, where we're saying, okay, I get it. I am overthinking this. I am trying to force a solution right here, right now. I want to know where the money's going to come from. I know where the security is going to come from, blah, 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 so on and so on. And then we say, okay, I'm going to agree that I'm not going to look at this and do another list again for 3 days, or if that's too long, 2 days. Like I said, you get to do it. And then engage in something creative and fun. I can't remember the last time I saw you laughing. Joy and creativity is such nourishment for the soul. And so here I am going to be not moving to the next slide. What is happening? Oh. All right, so this is a little video.
How do you overcome fear and
which is a perspective on overcoming fear. So fear is also a symptom of intuitive dissonance. We experience fear when we feel our security is threatened, our safety is threatened, when we don't feel like there is enough of something, when we are being called to change, and we are fearful that we will lose something that we most cherish and love. So here I'm just going to share a little bit of insight on what it is and what you can do.
worry, right? This is something we all experience in different degrees from time to time. This is very easy to overcome once you understand awareness in the mind. Let's look at a simple view of time, right? You have the past, you have the present, which is now, and the future, right? This is a very simplified way of looking at time. Worry and fear only exists in the future. You cannot worry anything about anything in the past. It's already happened, but you can be concerned or fearful of what the consequences that may take place in the future. Fear and worry is future-based. Fear and worry is awareness leaving the present moment, going into the future, creating a situation that has not happened, coming back to the present and worrying about it. I'll tell you a story that my guru shared with me. When he was 7 years old, this was in 1934, up in Lake Tahoe, his family was coming back in the car, and it was snowing really heavily, and he was really worried that he would miss his favorite radio program called Captain Midnight. And back then, if you missed your favorite radio show, there's no internet that you can go and listen to it again, right? There's somebody on the phone going, Captain Midnight, right? And that's all you get to listen. You get one shot. So sitting in the car, it was snowing really heavily. The car was driving. Stuck in the snow. I'm not going to get home in time. I'm not going to be able to watch my listen to my radio show. And then he saw what was happening in his mind. He saw his awareness going into the future, creating a situation in his mind where they were getting stuck in the snow. And then he was coming back, his awareness came back to the present and started worrying about this thing that had not happened yet. Then he asked himself, are we stuck in the snow? And his answer was no. Are we still moving? Yes. Am I still on schedule to get home to watch my show? Yes. So what am I worried about? Right? And he said to himself, I am all right right now. And that's a beautiful affirmation to say. Every time you're fearful or worried, say to yourself, I am all right now. But to understand and overcome fear and worry, you have to understand awareness in the mind. Fear and worry is based on the fact that awareness is leaving the present moment, going into the future in your head, creating a situation that has not happened, coming back to the present and worrying about that or fearing that. So every time awareness goes into the future in an uncontrolled way and creates a situation in your mind, right, that is not wholesome, bring it back to the present and say, I'm not going to let it do it. And that's why you want to develop concentration and willpower, right? So you can keep awareness on what you're doing. It's okay to let awareness go into the future as long as it goes into the future to think out things in a very positive way.
So fear, some remedies he shared was coming back to present moment awareness, knowing what is, where I am right now. Did that thing that I am fearing for future, is that happening? No. And to affirm I am all right now. So sometimes the thing is a little bigger than missing our Captain Midnight show, not minimizing that, but whatever, just coming back to that present moment, being in the midst of it, because what we energize in fear is an affirmation, right? And so we have that denial that in this moment, I release the future. I come right here, whether it is, what Gail is affirming right now, I am a child of God. I do not inherit sickness. Whether it is that I live, in an abundant universe. Now, I am not sharing this for my own sake or the sake of this community, but very often I will hear from people, I don't have a lot of income. So therefore I cannot tithe, right? And again, this is not, but this is about your energy, because whether it's 50 cents or a dollar, you are saying to the universe, I believe I live in abundant flow. I believe I live in abundant flow. But what happens with the ego is, oh, I can't give 50 cents because that's not a lot. So instead, we live into, I don't have any money, and I don't have any money perpetuates the experience going forward. So I just invite you to breathe into that and to know what it is that you want to claim for yourself. And so we move into something called the fifth thing, which is a sign of intuitive dissonance, which is the experience of empathy. And some people are empaths. So we all have the capacity of both, because we are all energy beings, and I don't end where you do. We may feel the physical separation. We see the physical distinction, but our thoughts vibrate. What we hold unconsciously, what we say out loud vibrate. We experience that all. And empathy is that ability to compassionately be present to what is going on for another, to say, hey, I validate what you're going through is challenging. And I might not have experienced what you did, but I am understanding that it is challenging, and to hold that space. Empath means that we are all connected, and so we can sense each other, but some people have that pathway a bit stronger. People who have said yes to feeling their feelings and unblocking those samskaras began to say, oh my God, I'm feeling more than me. And I can feel the energy and vibration. I can feel the sadness of others, and so on and so on. So this is some remedies for that.
What does it mean to be empathetic? Being an empath, or being empathetic, is when you thrive off others' emotions and have the ability to feel and care for what the other person is feeling. Having this kind of personality can actually put a lot of strain on your mental health and abilities. Even though it is great to be an empathetic person, it can be exhausting. If you're a tired empath, here are 5 tips you should know. Number 1. It's okay to have a little me time, to be by yourself every once in a while. If you're constantly surrounded by people and feeling their emotions, it can take a lot of energy out of you. When you're overwhelmed like this, you're not able to help people to your full ability. It's good to recharge and get those negative thoughts out of your head that are coming from others. Read a book, dance, sing, binge watch a series. Just remember to take a break from people every now and then. Number 2. Be slippery. This means to let the emotions others put on you to slide right off. If someone's emotions are overpowering, make sure you acknowledge that and let it slide out of your brain. Make sure your emotions don't bottle up inside either. This is when the me time comes into good use, so you can get in tune with what you're feeling yourself. Number 3. Make sure you center yourself. Grounding yourself will help you clear your head and heart. Whether you do a little meditation, yoga, or even some deep breaths can really help you recenter throughout the day. Number 4. Differentiate. Sometimes the emotions you are feeling are not your own. When you are an empath, you tend to take on others' emotions and see them as your own. Once you recognize that these emotions are not your own, you can let them run free and move on. Number 5. Avoid energy suckers. This means to try and avoid people that bring a lot of drama into their life, and by extension, yours. These people will try to bring you down and suck you into whatever problems or drama they have going on. Even though you can't help but be empathetic towards them, try to minimize your time spent around them. Those are the 5 tips you should follow, all you wonderful empathetic people out there. And remember,
All right, so just wanted to highlight really quickly here the importance of having that alone time and really knowing your feelings, sensing it of others. And when it says energy suckers, I understand that some people process by kind of letting their suffering spill out. So I just ask you all, like, what connotation does an energy sucker have? So, but just be aware that their suffering is spilling over. How do we hold them in that place of compassion and know when we are moving from being supportive to being enabling, to holding the space, whether it has to be from a distance or not, because sometimes we can be like, oh, I can't be around that people. I mean, can you imagine, you know, Jesus ever saying to the lepers, like, you energy suckers, like, get away? So I'm just saying, yes, he did go into the wilderness. He did model that. But sometimes I think we can become spiritual hoity-toity and having the superiority. So yes, balance that alone time. How do I know what's mine, what's not mine to do? How do I know the difference of support and how I can see them whole and complete and know that I don't have all their answers? And then, you know, do I need to love them from a distance? And this is true with all that's going on in the world, right? You know, if we are doing our healing work and we're allowing ourselves to feel, we are going to feel the sadness in this world. We have been through a lot of trauma in this world. And so now more than ever, we must know how that we can recharge ourselves so that we can be refreshed and present and know how to stand in our strength, how to stand in our power, and to be the light that we are called to be. So my friends, I hope that this series in some shape or form has been helpful in some way to you. And as we close, noticing that when you're experiencing resistance that shows up as blocked energy, when you're experiencing doubt and lack of self-esteem, confusion or overthinking, fear, when you're charged with highly being, you know, feeling the feelings of others and needing that time out, when you can recognize these signs, you take a deep breath and then say, I'm going to call myself up. Remember the lines of True Colors. When this world makes you crazy and you have taken all you can bear, just call me up. Call a person, call, most importantly, your higher self. Call the universe up, because I will always be there. And I see your true colors shining through like a rainbow. Namaste. Have a blessed day.
Thank you, Reverend Angela. This series has been absolutely wonderful.
Thank
you. Now read our affirmative prayer. In times of trials and tribulations, I pierce through the experience of darkness by surrendering and going within. I am guided by my wise intuition through challenging times, and I lift myself up and out of the lowest and darkest of circumstances.